Hi, and welcome to the Divinely Inspired Woman podcast. I am your host, Patricia Wald-Hopkins. I am a modern mystic, and I am here to share with you the beautiful wisdom and stories from women that desire to lead their lives inspired by the divine within them. The divinely inspired woman is devoted to walking the path of her soul's calling, tuning into the divinity within to navigate life with ease and grace through all circumstances. She cultivates beauty in her daily life. She is here to share the most authentic self each day through thick and thin. So I hope you enjoy our show today and that you will leave with an infusion of inspiration for your soul and for your day and living your life. Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of the Divinely Inspired Woman podcast. Today I have a wonderful, beautiful guest, Christy Sharafinski. Did I say that correctly? I forgot to ask you before.
Our joke in the family has always been, you knew when it was a telemarketer on the other end of the line. They get that name and freak out, right?
Oh, I love that. I love that when you just go for it, right? And you try to say it. Did I do okay?
Oh yeah, you did totally fine. It's just long.
Well, look at my name.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So my name is Patricia Wald-Hopkins, and I am the host of this podcast. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about Christy. She's got a lot of good stuff here. Let's see. This is her 9th year supporting high school seniors to complete their deepest essays. Her nearly 200 students have consistently earned acceptance letters from their dream colleges. That's awesome. Families consider Christy to be their secret weapon when it comes to working with their teens on the personal statement, activity list, and supplemental essays. She takes the stress off parents and teens alike so they can enjoy senior year together. Wow. Her students, many of them from the top of their class, consistently struggle to talk about themselves in a way that expressed their unique genius in a compelling and interesting way. That is so true. Yeah, that's so true. And so over the years, Christy has developed methods to coax each teen to organically tell their deepest story. She now offers complete your essay in a weekend workshops and one-on-one mentorships. I did not know that. Christy has 6 kids of her own, with 2 at their number 1 choice colleges right now. Wow. And has also hosted 12 French exchange students. You have a busy home.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't have it any other way.
And when she's not helping high school seniors, Christy helps entrepreneurs around the world to tell their deepest stories through effective branding and storytelling. And I know that I've had an opportunity to collaborate with you a little bit. And I experienced that, I want to say, laser sharp refinement that you do with language and graphics and all of that. And so my curiosity, and first of all, I want to thank you for being here, being willing to show up here today and talk about your work with our community. But I want to tune into how you are divinely inspired as you do this work in the world, or, live your life in general. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's fun. And thank you for having me, Patricia. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody. So, yeah. So I think the way that I'd come at answering that is that I shared with you earlier how my last job that I had pre-pandemic was I was a strategist for an online marketing company. They didn't actually know I was a graphic designer or anything else, but strategy. I passed all their quizzes And off I went into the world of talking to business owners, actually from around the world. I've never added up the number of countries I've spoken to people in, but it's fascinating. And we're all the same, right? Like, we've got these struggles and this isn't working and that is frustrating. 600 of these conversations, though, really gave me room over a year and a half to just start to make distinctions about who we are as people, what those struggles are, but also starting to have more clarity around what's that next step. But also, I think even the bigger gift was having the room to start to feel into my own intuition. So I was actually trained by two men, one who'd written a best-selling book on persuasion, and they'd put us through these intensive trainings. And 2 days later, I'd go back to a different way of doing things. And I remember talking to the other women on my team, and they're all like, oh yeah, we bagged it as soon as we were done with them. Because we have a skill within us when we trust it of like this inner knowing, right? Like I could do things by the book, but when my heart was like, wait a minute, we need to just talk about this thing over here for a couple of minutes, because I can give you all the strategy in the world, but if your heart's broken, you're not going to implement any of it. So like, why bother? Let's address this thing that's going on right here. So that work gave me space and time to start to learn to just be present with people. And I could say to them, I'm going to put something out here that I don't know, like I learned to put that little marker in front of it, and it gave them permission to just be like, yeah, that's a miss. But about 90% of the time they were like, oh, wow. And that was my intuition. And so by giving myself, I don't know, I made my own safe container, and it was very good people, business owners that I worked with, and they were so responsive. And it's just started to help me be more courageous and more confident in that inner knowing, that deeper, beyond logic knowing. And I'm grateful for it. I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah. It's something that is not generally cultivated. How
do you teach these things, right? So I went to school for graphic design. So yeah, I mean, I can talk fonts and colors and this and that, but this is people that are my clients. And so like, for example, in the branding work I do with them, I'm working with someone right now who, because of her human design type, because of she's a reflector is what it's called. And my gut is like, I was like, normally I'd give a client 5 options. I gave her 1. I'm like, let's just see if you like this. Because I actually think it's probably my best design of the options I've done so far. And if you like it, we're done here. We don't actually need to complicate this. But there's other clients, I take them through every step of the journey. Like, so every one of my clients I treat uniquely, because I'm just sort of tapping into like, who are you? What do you need? Some people are super trusting and some of them really aren't. Great. Yeah. Let's meet that instead of trying to fit them into my own box. And again, this stuff, you can't teach this in a couple of years of an hour a week in a classroom. I'm sorry. Right? Yep. These things take time, some experimentation, some good mentorship. And then here we are.
Here we are. I think it really is, it's more of a mentorship, right? Or a print, like you have to, it's experiential. You can't just read it in a book.
Right.
Or, you have to like feel it. And I was going to ask you about that because we talked a little bit about that. Like when you feel it, you actually feel it in your body because your body knows. And is that true? I think that's true for you.
I'd say for me, this is actually the place that I personally am really working this last year and just realizing how conditioned I have been my entire life. I'm the oldest child, so it's that super responsible role. And honestly, like I've had reflected to me from my cousins who are older and stuff, how like almost punishing my parents were. They'd never had kids before. And here's this little fireball and just them trying to like put me into a little container and rein me in. I was a little wild child, I think, and so for me, like being conditioned to learn, this is how I get love. This is how I'm accepted, and then as I went on and on and on into my own marriage and, with my children, et cetera, like so many places where I've been told, this is the right way to do it. This is what a good girl does. Here's how you get the gold star. And being the super achiever I am, I have gone at it 100%. And last year, actually like really hit bottom twice. Not in the sense of like an addict, but exhaustion and just knowing some things were off. And thankfully was working with a coach at the time who even said to me in the middle of it, she was the one who saw it first. She said, you're wanting to go launch this work with the college essays at Easier College Essays, but you're on empty. Can you take a week before you even do this and don't look at it and just rest? And some things conspired, and I actually did. Somebody reached out and said, can one of your kids pet sit for me for a week? We'll be out of town. We'll pay them. I'm like, I actually think it's me. And so I left everything at home, let my husband take care of the one daughter that doesn't drive and needed rides to high school and all that. And I went for a week, and I thought I was going to paint and read. And you know what, Patricia? I did nothing. The burnout was so deep, and I did not even know how deep it was. But so I've started to change my life as a result of that. Like, I currently do not work on Thursdays. I started it with that week. Wow. I've established that as part of my life. Like, it's sacred. And all my clients know you're not going to hear from me on Thursday. I don't respond to those emails. Even though I see them come in, I try not even to look at my phone. I don't respond. I'll talk to you on Friday. I'll be back with you next Monday. It's just a way, because as a parent, got 6 kids, they're not all here anymore, but it's just, I've had decades of being on call, and it was never for me. And so just starting to make time and space to take that inner deep breath and make room. That's been huge. And to start to decondition all this expectation around the doing, the showing up, the taking care of everybody else, all those things, and starting to say, oh, but what does my body say? Right. And that's been a project to start to go, actually, there is wisdom here, but I'm realizing I have very atrophied muscles in that area. And so
I think, most of the general public does, because we don't stop. And you have to, like you said, you have to make space, you have to be still, or else you can't hear or feel anything that's you. It's all. Well,
and it's just so conditioned, right? To shut, just like in the conversation going on in the population as a whole around like the patriarchy, and then, or like women and how we show up in the world, and this idea of like minimizing, shutting down, cancel culture. But guess what? For me, I'm like, Christy, you're the number one culprit of it in your own life. And that's the deconditioning of like, oh, wait a minute, is there even a different way here? And starting to make space so that there's a sense of options, which is very different. In the past, it was like, there's no options. This is how you do it. You just show up. Even if you're sick, you need to get these kids to school, or you need to make the lunches. You can come home and half die in an hour. Keep going. You know, I can think of times I'd be driving them to school with only one eye open. Like, did anybody really want me on the interstate?
Right. But that's what we do as mothers. We do. Have done, I don't have 6, I have 3, but I know those days where you're got one eye open and where does this child need to be, and why am I driving right now? But I hear you on that. And so, I mean, one of the things that, with, like the divine feminine prosperity model now, one of my mentors has worked with me a lot too, is spaciousness. Women need spaciousness so that they can flow and find their own rhythms and listen to their bodies. Like my daughter today, even, she's in sports and she's like doing 2 sports, and she called me after school and she says, Mom, can I not go to practice this afternoon because my body is tired? And the old me would have been, oh, you can't miss.
Right. I've paid for this. Of course you're going to show up.
And I said, no, honey, come home and rest.
Yeah.
Come
That's
home.
Beautiful. But you saw her, right? Like, and this is how we start to change things in our own families, in our own worlds, by seeing the other, by actually responding humanely, kindly, gently, just being present and being like, okay, let's do that.
Listen. Don't push.
Right.
Don't
Let
push
go of
forward,
push.
don't push through, don't push through the pain.
Yeah.
There's a difference, I think, between practicing and being devoted to something, right? Showing up every day and working hard, but there are times when you have to stop and listen and say, my body just, and my mind, right, needs to just be quiet.
Yeah.
Really,
And
really.
I really do think these are the acts of courage.
Yes.
Right? The push, push, push is so conditioned. We're so used to it that it's not noble. Although I think we were trained to believe that it was.
Yeah,
no, what's really courageous is to stop or to say no to someone. Like my sister had this happened to her this week. It was inspiring to me. So I'll share it real fast. Someone invited her and said, hey, we're going to go see this concert on Friday night. Want to come? And there's a person on the phone and another person standing there. And she felt so much pressure. She's just like, okay. But later on, 15 minutes later said, but who's going? And someone was coming that she actually said to herself, like in her body knows she does not feel good around this person and their energy. No judgment of them or anything else, but she was just honoring her own knowing and came back to the person and just said, I'll pay for that ticket and I will not be there. Thank you. And feel free to invite somebody else if you want to. But yeah. And I was like, oh my God, that's so courageous, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the old conditioned version is, of course I'll go. I said I'd go. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, et cetera, et cetera. And yet you're hurting your own feelings. You're punishing yourself. You're denying, you're canceling yourself. And she didn't. I was so impressed. I'm like, that is courage. I am inspired.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to realize that we need to do that and be an example for, our children. And not just the girls, the boys too, because they get told to really push through, right? Even more than
show
the girls
no emotion
and show no emotion. And that, that's something that I work with my children too, is, allowing them to have their feelings, right? To need space to decompress and that kind of thing. So I'm going to just pause and see here for a second where we want to go with this conversation, because I can feel there's a lot of different avenues we could take. What is really burning for you right now in your world? Like what are you passionate about, and how are you using this, sounds like more deeply awakening intuitive self as a creative juice for, what are you up to?
And just like you were like, we could go so many directions. I'm like, I can even go so many directions with that. But the one that's probably the most true is that I'm actually being very quiet right now. I'm recognizing this is fallow ground. And that said, all of my counterparts in the college planning, college admissions world are firing up right now, right? So those parents, those junior parents, the ones that are the go-getters, who you most want to work with, right? They're the most fun. It's people that are going to go, the generators of the world, all that. So all my counterparts are go with the marketing and everything else. And I have multiple ideas of where my business is even going to go with Easier College Essays this year. And I'm like, but it is not time. My generator sacral motor has not been fired yet. I could quote force it, and I am not going to. And it's some days that is hard to just be like, no, I'm just going to be in my fallow ground. And what that looks like for me, what I really am passionate about. So in human design, I'm a 1-3 profile. Mm-hmm. So the 1 is, it's the investigator. What's the other word? I actually like the cowgirl word, like explorer, adventurer, because that totally is me. But I am a learner. And so for about 3-4 months now, I've been spending 2 and 3 hours a day reading and exploring and learning and growing. And right now, I'm actually even pretty much knowing I'm meant to take a month off this year. And I'm actually going to do it before my college planning part comes in, not after. Because it's a season, it's about 5 months that I'm really working with my students. The Common App opens up in August. So that's where you hit the ground running. So I'm feeling like May, and I've been exploring where that might be. Is it the south of France? I've had a bunch of French exchange students. I could potentially kind of pull in some favors there.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I've sent 4 of my children with students that we've had, and I have not gone since I was in high school. It was the only time I was in France, and just for a couple of days. And I would like to go for a month. So I've played with that idea, and even possibly exploring, there's a pilgrimage that's like a Mary Magdalene.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
yeah. So I'm playing with that and even trying to learn, like, what is this? I don't even know.
Yeah.
That's one option. Israel has popped up as an option. And then some things here in the US, possibly, maybe not even going abroad. It would be a lot more peaceful in some ways to maybe just do some things here. So I don't know. And I'm allowing myself, this is very feminine, honestly, to be in the mystery of it, the not knowing, and just trusting that, yes, even though these tickets are getting more expensive, even though I don't even really know how I'm going to fund it, etc., there's a reason I have that calling inside me. And so practicing being quiet, and really doing my best to not go into my head, which I'm very good at. But that's that conditioning piece. And I'm like, I don't want to. I have done that for 55 years. It's time to do a different way. So what is my body doing? What's it needing? What feels good to me right now? I actually am reminding myself I have permission to do what feels good, not the forcing stuff and all. So yeah, you and I will have to check in here in a couple of months, and I'll let you know what it becomes. But that's where it is right now. It's a fallow field. It has not been, I'm sure there's some little, there might be seeds underground in there yet, but I don't know where it is
winter.
yet.
It's not spring yet.
No. Although strangely here in North Carolina, my daffodils, it is full-blown spring.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah. My first daffodil popped out on January 2nd of this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
as someone who lived in
unpredictable.
But I lived in Chicago 20 years. I'm like, I still think that's like the biggest miracle ever to see an alive plant in January.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Super fun.
We don't see so many here either, like flowers, but it's interesting because what you're talking about, and I've actually been going through a similar thing and being really still and really quiet. And I went through a burnout at the end of last year too. And, it's had me become like almost fierce about protecting my energy. You know what I mean? Like, and it's reconditioning myself, right? Because I'm a manifesting generator. And so I can go, but if I'm not going with something that actually replenishes me, then I burn out. And that's what I was doing. I was using my motor for someone else.
Yes.
Yeah. And so
I actually
do that, right?
Oh yeah.
Just give our creativity power away.
Yeah. No. And I think it's so important for us as women to say it is so precious. It is. This energy that whatever amount I have, whatever, like it is valuable, not cheap. That's cheap stuff is what you give away. It's on the discount store, and it's like, no, it's not. And here's the thing, you and I, we are realizing we have to value ourselves first. Nobody's going to treat us a way that we don't treat ourselves. We're teaching the people around us how to treat us. And so, and, going back to that example of my sister, she's like, oh, of course I'll do it. And then she came back and said, no, actually, I will not. And that was her honoring her knowing. My burning out last summer, taking a week off from my clients, that was me honoring what I just really needed. And taking these Thursdays off consistently. This is me honoring what I just need. And I come back on Friday and I am fired up. It's a beautiful thing. I did not have that before. I was maybe sort of fired up on Monday, But by Wednesday, I was exhausted because I just didn't have anything other than fumes in the tank for years.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you have found a different way now, a different path. It's called the sacred feminine path, the divine feminine path, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
that is the Mary Magdalene, so maybe that is the pilgrimage that you're going to be going on. Mary Magdalene comes up a lot in my work. And there's a lot in that. And I wasn't sure. Can I share the card that I pulled for us before?
Absolutely.
Because I think it applies.
Okay.
Like, I think it really does.
Mm-hmm.
This is from my Oracle deck, the Infinite Self Oracle cards. And we pulled, I don't think you can't see it too well. And if you're just listening, you can't see it either, but it's called Sun Kisses. And the message is about play. And I think when you allow yourself to slow down and be playful, like a child almost, you can manage your energy, you can be replenished, you can tap into what I like to call the Gaia energy that actually resources you rather than trying to make everything happen yourself. And that's like the cycles of nature, right? And they might be your own inner cycles, right? We are part of Gaia. So we have our own cycles to honor. And so how does the word play, how do you bring play to honor yourself?
So like my Thursdays, actually on my calendar, it says play day.
See?
Yeah, that's what it says. And I even have all these notes in there to remind me if I start to go off track, like leave the phone or at least shut it off. Like I'm not checking email. I'm not even checking social. I do take pictures because I do photography a lot. So that's actually fun for me. So that is playing, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely one piece of it. And what does the play look like? It looks like in the morning, like usually the night before, most often, I actually do not have a plan for the next day. Planning is not necessarily playing, at least in my way. And so it's waking up in the morning and just laying there in bed and being like, somebody else is taking care of the kids this morning and meals. Like I'm off duty. And what do I want to do? So sometimes I end up at a coffee shop. Like yesterday, I actually did have a doctor's appointment. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to go to my favorite coffee shop. So I had it in the map because I was in downtown Charlotte. And as I'm driving, I passed this place that had a J. Crew factory store. And I've never been there. And I said to myself, I want to go someday. And I swear I went across 2 lanes and I'm like, I'm going now. And I just had so much fun exploring that store where I did not buy anything. And then I checked out the other shops, ended up at the cutest Italian restaurant that I will come back to. I got to sit outside. It was beautiful weather yesterday. And I just was like, so this is a much more grown-up version of play, but it's that unstructured. Now what do I want to do? Oh, that's fun. Let's go do that.
Curiosity.
Yes.
Adventure.
And just being in the moment.
Yeah.
And
like,
after
what's this?
Right.
A child with a rock, just looking at it. This is really interesting.
Yeah.
A little
it's actually been bringing up too, something that I've been almost exploring is the fact that there are little Christies inside me, and so, and I've been doing work to give them more space to express, to expand, and to almost revisit my childhood in some ways, not by being childish, but by just being aware.
Yeah.
And a coach actually said to me, some of them, Christy, may not want to come out and play for a while. They could be kind of pissed off at you.
Yeah, I've got some of those.
And it's like, okay. So, and I don't know what this is going to look like as I work to give them more room. But there is a trusting element of just, you know what? I'm doing the best I can. And letting them know with little whispers here and there, hey, you guys, you can come out and play. It's a safe place. I'm doing so much better, let me be kind to you and give you that little hug that you're wanting. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful, is that work that we do to reparent ourselves, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I had one of my inner child parts of me who refused to come down out of a tree because she was afraid I was going to make her work too hard.
Wow.
So I've been having to make sure that I create space so that she feels like she can come down and come back down and reintegrate with me, right?
Yeah. And you can even tell her, I'm sure, hey, and if you need to go back up in that tree,
you can go right back
too. Yeah. Because Lord knows, as little kids, we were not even given that permission. You get down here now, young lady. And I mean, now.
You stay down here.
Yeah. I think about play as lightness, and so sometimes in making decisions, I'll even ask my body, does that feel light? Because sometimes I'm like, do you want to do that? I'm like, I don't know. But I'm like, well, but does it feel lighter? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, it actually does. And so that can be a clue for me of like at least the right direction to get started.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like distinctions like that. I just feel like they're helpful little tools in my toolbox for my mind to get to have a job to do, to be like, yeah, Christy, wait a minute. You can ask, is this lighter or heavier for me with this decision? Oh, let's go to the lighter direction. Does this feel easier or does it feel so hard and dark? I'll give you an example actually with moving. So we lived in Chicago for over 20 years. And I told my husband when we moved there, at least in my mind, I told him, I will not die here at the North Pole. I grew up in South Florida. I'm like, yeah, this does not spark joy, but it's okay. I'm willing to be here for now for the job and everything. It's finally time for us to move. But where do we go? Right? My family's very mobile. Like my family's not the kind that we have to live around each other. We all travel and all that stuff. So where do I want to be? And I finally settled on North Carolina. And I actually had a couple people kind of check in energetically about where might be a great spot for me. And 3 of them all said Raleigh. Interestingly, I had the insight this week. I said for myself and my husband, where's the best spot? Raleigh. So I go and I look at Raleigh, but every time I think about it in my mind, it seemed dark and kind of blurry. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Like my feeling of Raleigh was that. And when I came and visited the state, I went there. I'm like, okay, it's nice enough, right? That Chapel Hill's fabulous. Raleigh's, but there's the plants in the yards were ugly. Like, I don't understand. Chicago plants their yards well. Raleigh does not. It must be really bad soil. And I just was like, it's ugly. But I came through Charlotte, which is south, and there's a different kind of tree here. And I felt my body just expand.
Yeah.
Then on top of it, this is the clincher. So we're moving in 2020. The stay-at-home order had already happened, but we got our house on the market. It sells. We're going. And I remember thinking, wait, I actually could go to the beach because in Chicago, we had so many cases a day. I'm like, you guys aren't even going to be in school. So what? Maybe and I just, even to think about it was so hard for me at first, but I finally was like, why not? Right. Why not? And I ended up finding, and we moved in sight unseen other than over a video. I moved into a home on the water at the beach in North Carolina. And if it hadn't have been for the pandemic and us moving right then, in my entire life, I probably would have never gotten to do that. And we got 8 months there by the water. And it was the most restorative, healing time. And I needed it so badly. And I was given it in part because I was a little courageous. And I noticed, even though Raleigh was, quote, the right answer and the right place for the jobs and everything else, it was dark. It was heavy.
Yeah.
But when I thought of the beach, it was like the sparkles of the water. And it was fabulous and so healing. And my kids at first, this is just a funny story. We used to be able to walk to Starbucks where we lived outside of Chicago in the suburbs. And we get to the beach and the closest Starbucks is 19 miles away. And my kids are like, where did you bring us? Right. So I was like, Chicago was the North Pole for me. This was their version of the North Pole. And my kids would sometimes get in the car because there were no COVID cases there. So school is happening. That was shocking. So my kids are doing school. My oldest son's a senior. He's driving. They'd leave 40 minutes early to drive to Starbucks, 19 miles round, one way, so they could get their drinks before school. And you know what? I let them do it, which if my husband actually was not there with us, I think if he had been, he would have been like, hell no, we are not paying for this gas, not this mileage on the car. And I'm like, you know what? You guys don't have friends. Like, this was actually a compassionate thing for me to let them do something that was familiar, that was comfortable. And the two of them in the truck every morning, we're just having a grand time together, just enjoying each other, because then they sat in a school with face masks on, right? Separated by 6 feet. Like, how do you make a friend across the country sitting in this? And this was a kind way to treat them, a kind way to just be.
To allow them to feel good, to feel good in their bodies, right?
Yeah. And at the end of that time, because at first they're like, where the heck did you bring us? By the end of it, they said, this actually was really cool, Mom.
Oh,
you know, isn't that a gift? And I feel like that was our sorbet. It was like me taking the week after burning out. That was a sorbet before what came next. This was a sorbet in our lives of going from the suburbs to like, what are we doing next? Let's give ourselves space. Let's find out. Yeah.
I love that.
And that's what this journey is, right? Giving ourselves space, being gracious.
Sorbet.
Have sorbet.
Right?
Pick your favorite flavor.
You got to have sorbet now and then too, right?
Yes. Pick like your favorite flavor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you have, you definitely have a lot of feminine wisdom, can feel that, within you. And you also have very balanced masculine and, that masculine energy. So that's like where we're all going, right? The sacred union of the feminine and the masculine within us.
We don't have to shut out either. And in truth, we actually need that highest expression of both. And let's unwind it in our bodies. I trust that somewhere deep inside me, there's a knowing.
Well, and I'm going to have two things, but I just want to point out that right now while we're recording this, we're actually in the gene keys in the pulse of gene key 37, which is called tenderness. And it's all about equality and the sacred family and bringing together the feminine and the masculine, almost to the point where it's just dissolved, it just merges. And so it's really, it's never a coincidence why we have conversations about things when we do. But I want to know how people can find out more about you and what you do.
Sure. Thanks for asking. That's fun. Well, like I mentioned, I do a lot of photos. So I'm actually a very fun person, I'm told, to follow on social media. And it's just under Christy Sharafinski on Facebook, or Instagram's where I am the most anymore. Although I actually even have a TikTok at this point. Ooh. Yeah, for the college essays, the kids are there, right? So
that's great.
Yeah. So, and I do have two websites I'll mention. So easiercollegeessays.com. If you know of anybody who's got those kids that are heading toward college or just thinking about it, going into my 9th year, there's a lot of experience I had. And I worked 4 years with a nationally known college planner. So I'm not your average person, just because of the background I've been blessed to have. Mm-hmm. And then I have graphic design clients all around the world, just wrapping up a project today for someone in Brazil.
Nice.
But most of my clients are in the US, but so I've got some international ones as well. And it's branding. It's primarily for people who are launching something. I've had all these conversations over the years with business owners. So it really has become my specialty. Like, how do we do this marketing piece? And I really love helping people. This is not typical graphic designer stuff, but really helping them get that ROI, right? Like, it's nice that we're going to make something beautiful, but if we aren't clear on the intention and the goals around it, you could be wasting your money and not doing the right thing. And I've had clients, I'm like, this is how I would do this. And you actually should not do this. You should come over here. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to hire you. I'm like, yeah, you actually shouldn't, and I'm not afraid to have that conversation. I want the highest and best for each of us. And I figure it'll come back around some other place. So
yeah, you have to align with your ideal clients, right? Otherwise,
I want it to be win-win.
You're not doing what feels good and replenishes you, right? You're not in alignment. So yeah. Well, beautiful. I will make sure that I have all those information and those links in the notes for this podcast. And I just want to take a moment to thank you for being here and sharing all this wisdom. I really feel you are a divinely inspired woman. So,
thank you, Patricia. It feels
thank
so
you
good.
so much. And
I received that. Thank you.
yeah, and I look forward to seeing more of what you're doing, and people, reach out to her. She's an amazing, amazing woman. So thanks
Thank you.
again, everybody. And until next time, have a beautiful day or evening, wherever you're at. Much love to you all. Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Divinely Inspired Woman. Again, I'm your host, Patricia Wald-Hopkins, and I am so glad that you joined us here today. I hope you left with some soul food to inspire your daily life. And if you would like to learn more about my work, please check out my website, patriciawaldhopkins.com, and you can find out more about my divinely inspired practice and tools. So, thank you again. Have a beautiful day. Hi. I'm dropping in here with an announcement about a program, a new mentorship that I am offering. It's called Voices of Gaia, and it's about bringing your voice, your leadership, your life in alignment with Gaia's guidance. So if you feel called to learn more about this program, it's a beautiful, rich program where we dive into your essence, and if you so desire, we develop your business around it and really blossom into your whole lifestyle, this wisdom from Gaia that wants to be spoken through you. So if you feel called, reach out to me at patricia@patriciawaldhopkins.com. That's patricia@patriciawaldhopkins.com. There's no hyphen between Wald and Hopkins. And I would just love to hear from you and see if this is a good fit. So thank you for tuning in. Have a beautiful day.